Hey, Nick, can you hear me okay?
Hey, I
Hey,
can. Great.
well, thank you for doing this. I appreciate the on-brand hat, the Eat Fish hat right there. And
Uh, I have other fish. I got other hats just sitting around, lots of fish hats. It's part of being a fishmonger. You got to support your protein.
support not your protein, your protein. So I see that there's going to be a lot of puns right here, which is good.
If fish make it easy.
Well, I love your brand. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do this. Most of the time, someone says, "Hey, try this," and I go, "That's great. Let's put it in a roundup." Your brand, best fish I've had in a while, and all that. Was the quality always this high, or did you have to grow into the quality?
So I'm sure. So the our PR. So Gary and team sent you a free box, right? Like
They,
a PR.
they may or may not have sent complimentary wares for partial disclosure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have no. Look, they just tell me where to be and how to be, and I show up.
Yeah,
We have grown into it. Our fish quality. We know demonstrably it's the highest in the industry, and part of that has been a decade doing this, making um, top of the line capital investments and quality that no other fishmongers are making, working with fishermen to harvest for quality and not quantity.
sure.
A lot of fishermen cut down trees, or a lot of fishermen harvest fish. Oh, we're recording now. Okay.
If that's okay, if you want to restart, that's
Oh,
up to you.
no, that's good. So I had no idea we were recording. I thought we were just being off the cuff. No. So where did it take us a while? So here we are. I'm starting this interview.
Yeah,
We've been at this for 10 years,
yeah.
and we've always been really quality focused. But the nice thing is, in about the last 5 years, we've been able to really make significant capital investments in our supply chain that makes sure that our fish, when it gets to your doorstep, is like number one. Like, I know you've had our halibut and our salmon, and really all along the way, unlike most other seafood companies, we're just laser focused on quality and making sure that from the moment that fish comes out of the water, it's treated with the respect that it deserves. Like, it's this amazing wild creature that's given its life for us, and this incredible wild food. And we just want to take it all the way through the supply chain, get it to your house, and make sure it's the best tasting fish there is. And, unfortunately, most seafood is not harvested that way. Most seafood is harvested as a commodity and for volume, rather than for, what we think it should be is this, like, wonderful special occasion food that really people love, and that tastes great, that tastes like it's pull of the ocean. And we've made, millions of dollars of investments and built custom, everything from custom freezers to custom, standard operating procedures to tracking technology, just like to make sure that when your fish gets there, it's like incredible, right?
Well, the reason I asked that, if it was always the same quality, is I think most people that you speak to about their profession or their trade, you speak to them about their earliest work, songwriters, for example. How many songwriters, musicians have you heard? You ask about their first album, they go, "Oh, I didn't know how to write songs back then. I was a terrible guitar player. Listen to this mistake right here." And fish is a different thing, because bad fish can do bad things to you.
That fish is horrible, but I think of the band fish, which of course I think their earliest work was the best. So we have some different competing interpretations of that. But look, being a bigger company has definitely allowed us to, really pioneer some quality technologies and machinery and processes. But also, I think the big thing is really having capital investment and not running on a shoestring budget. And to your point, to go back to not the FISH, not the PH.
We're going to come back to that one.
ISH. I do think our quality is higher than it was when we first started. And that's just because we have a decade of learning. Like, again, we built this supply chain from scratch, largely to address the issue that you just said, which is you go to a fish market, even you get a fish from an internet competitor, like maybe 1 out of every 5 pieces of fish is really good. And then maybe 2 or 3 are okay. But then you get that one that's like, man, this is like iffy. And I gotta like cover it up with a bunch of sauce or hold my nose to eat it. And like that gives seafood a bad name.
Yeah.
And and seafood, and the reality is when you eat fish is an incredibly versatile protein, an incredibly healthy protein, incredibly easy to cook, super good for you, super good for the planet, wild seafood, very climate friendly. And yet the whole supply chain that we've built around it has taken all of those amazing properties, particularly around quality and climate friendliness, and destroyed them, right? And so, for us, it's really about, I don't know, the new term is build back better, right? Seafood has a bad rap for a variety of reasons, and it's a really good reasons oftentimes. And, we've just tried to do something different so that people can, like Alaskans, I'm in Madison, Wisconsin right now, but, when I'm in Alaska, we eat fish 2 or 3 times a day. And it's like, you can do anything you can do with beef or pork, you can do with fish. But most Americans don't treat fish that way because the quality that they get, which starts on the boat and goes through the processor and the broker and the secondary processor in the grocery store, everything along that supply chain deteriorates the quality rather than preserves the quality. And it's unfortunate because people should love eating fish and they don't. Right.
But totally unrelated to the topic at hand, but something brought up by you. Early fish, the banned pH fish, better than the later stuff. The banned fishbone, the early stuff is better than the later. Have we come upon a theory that the early fish-related bans were all just better and didn't get better later on, yet Sitka has gotten better with time?
Yeah, it's an inverse relationship between bans and the culinary company. And if any of the fish members are listening, I'm a huge fan, and might be the reason why I started this company was my tours in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Wow. Okay. Small world all connected, but interestingly, you come from the academia world.
Yeah.
Which it blows my mind when I read about what it is that you worked on, what it is you did before Sitka happened and all that. Was there one particular event or occurrence that made you go, let's go on to this? I don't want to be an untenured teacher. I assume you were tenured.
Oh, I was on it. The whole academic world, I still teach a little bit. I still teach infrequently as an adjunct. But, I got my PhD from the University of Wisconsin. I was teaching at UW-Stevens Point in the history department. My background in academia is actually food history and environmental studies. So I had a lot of academic interests, right, and research interests in studying the relationship between the production of food and the consumption of food. And my academic interests were generally in the past, 19th century land use policy and early marketing and things like that. But I did have a lot of contemporary interests before I started, Salmon Shares with a couple of our fishermen founders. And it really went back to, I was teaching UW-Stevens Point, University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, for those of you guys that are on the coast. And my partner at the time, she got a job up in Sitka for the summer. And she did natural resource management. And we went up there thinking we were only going to be up there for 3 months. The conservation society that she got a job with also gave me a job. And we were up there and we're like, 2 months in, we're like, man, do we really want to go back to Wisconsin? We're like, no, we don't want to go back to Wisconsin. So I kind of forged a little bit of a career in Sitka doing salmon advocacy and policy, which is something that I knew from some of my graduate training. And what came of that was ultimately the genesis of Sitka Salmon Shares, which is our community-supported fishery, which is now the biggest community-supported fishery in the country, which is how do we create an eco label, or how do we create a brand and a company that's really built around the social and environmental characteristics of a product, but elevating those social and environmental characteristics of the product. And to me, that goes back to my academic interests, and that goes back to my professional interests, which is like, look, our food systems are really goofy, right? They're controlled by very, very few players. They put profits over the health of workers.
Humanity.
Yeah, profits over the health of workers, profits over our bodies, profits over, natural resources. And like, me and the couple fishermen that started this really wanted to do something better. And all of those guys, our original fishermen and the fishermen that fished for us, they were all incredibly frustrated. Here they were, these artisanal fishermen, these traditional harvesters, small boat, family operations, having to sell this amazing, beautiful fish on a commodity market and competing with large scale aquaculture and farm salmon. And it to use an academic word, it sucked for them. Right? and one of the reasons it sucked is not only were they getting paid low prices for a really good product, but they were actually forced to cut corners and to do things they shouldn't be doing to the fish because they needed to fish for volume rather than fishing artisanally and for value if a right marketplace for them existed. And if I look at this as an academic project, which in some ways I still do, this is really about like creating a market-based mechanism to improve the livelihoods of these small boat fishermen who can really take better care of the resource, who can catch less fish, make more money for it, and at the same time deliver a better product to the end consumer, which is like why you tasted, our halibut is demonstrably the best halibut you're ever going to get, right? And why that is because our fishermen take shorter trips. They catch fewer fish. They do more to make sure that when that fish hits the dock, it's in far better shape than if they delivered to another processor, because they know you're a guy in New York at the end of the day who's really excited to eat their fish. And then our company helps them deliver that increased value by setting up different freezing systems, getting fish to the plant quicker, getting fish to somebody like you more quickly. The reality is that frozen products and frozen fish, right, can and should be a higher quality than fresh fish for a variety of different reasons, but often isn't because of how the frozen chain, doesn't treat the fish in its frozen state as the perishable item that it is, right? So your typical frozen seafood, it's frozen at the end of its shelf life because a processor hasn't been able to sell it on a fresh market instead of what should be at the beginning of its shelf life. And then once it's frozen at the end of the shelf life, it takes a trip to all across the world for processing and reprocessing and sending in little portions and shipping it back. And it sits in a giant warehouse till a big company like, Walmart or Costco is ready to buy it a year and a half later. So when you're buying frozen fish, you're getting a fish that's almost always twice frozen, almost always traveled across the globe. And even by the time it was frozen, it was already past its prime. The reality is, I think the best way to treat fish, and this is what the Japanese know, they don't have this cult of fresh fish. Right. What the Japanese really want is fresh fish that is frozen immediately at the source at ultra cold temperatures, which locks in that freshness and which locks in that quality and doesn't take 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 days in a fresh chain to get somewhere. By that time, it's already past its prime. And then they want to defrost it right before it gets to their plates and they eat it. And really, I think that's how we should be eating seafood in this country. But, we've got this cult of freshness and, the big companies that control the whole seafood supply chain, that's where they make their money, right? That's the marketplaces that they've set up. So,
wow. I don't think 99% of people who will be hearing this, seeing this, reading the content, whatever it is, knew that. So thank you, Nic. And it sounds like Sitka is essentially eradicating the reality that Billy Joel put out into the world with the Downeaster Alexa, because that plight of the fishermen is not related to your company based on what you just told me. So kudos to you and what you're doing against Billy Joel's late 1980s propaganda.
I've now got to go listen to my Billy Joel. It's been a while.
Exactly. So 2 quick questions for you, and then you're a free man. And the first one, and these have nothing to do with fish, although you can make them about fish if you want. The first one is, do you have a TV recommendation that you could pass along to somebody who just needs a new show to start? Because let's face it, you going between Illinois, Wisconsin, and Alaska like you do, I'm sure there's some time to watch some stuff every now and then.
I just finished Murder Among the Mormons. It's a really nice little 3-episode Netflix documentary. Really good for a flight from Chicago to Seattle or from Seattle to Sitka. That's a TV show that I've been getting into, and don't tell anybody, but Mortgage or Marriage. This is a show where young people decide whether they want to spend their 30 grand on a marriage or on a house. I think it speaks to the highbrow, lowbrow thing that I like to pursue with both being an academic and also watching some pretty ridiculous shows on Netflix. I've been trying to get into Schitt's Creek recently, and my partner, she's like, you got to get into it. It takes a little while. I love Eugene Levy. I love Catherine O'Hara. I love the guy. I can't remember his name. He's kind of that guy in a lot of different shows. But I haven't been able to get into it yet, but I'm not going to stop trying. And then, the other thing that I really like to do, this is the food person in me, I love Triple D. And even though we've been, featured in Food and Wine and Bon Appetit, I just got done, with an article at Eating Well for Sitka Salmon Shares. Mm-hmm. There's nothing like finishing the night with a margarita and a little Guy Fieri and Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And there I said it. And I hope your listeners don't look down on me, but we have kind of a little cult following of him in our household. We celebrate his birthday. We love everything he does. And so those would be my recommendations from the Sitka Salmon Shares world.
Full disclosure, years before COVID, I went to the Guy Fieri restaurant in New York City a few times. Maybe somebody was picking up the tab for me. Maybe it was mystery shopping. We can't say. But I may be speaking with him and Sammy Hagar next month with regard to their mezquila. So I will send your best to him if that were to happen.
Yeah, tell him I just want to retweet. That was a tough review of his restaurant a few years ago. And
yeah,
New York Times. Brutal.
It was not deserved because the Heartland Brewery was pretty much pulling the strings behind the scenes. Like, it was really a Heartland Brewery restaurant. Heartland was like a chain in New York City. They used to have 6, 7 breweries. It's like a Hard Rock cafe that's pretending like it likes craft beer.
Okay.
And it wasn't bad. It was a nice atmosphere, but poor Guy, it's just kind of like the New York LA treatment versus the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Can't win.
There's that one food critic that had a lot of in Fargo, North Dakota, that like really exalted Red Lobster. He needs the nice Midwestern treatment, the Midwest nice.
For sure.
Well, yeah, we travel, and I love, going to guys' places and my parents are big fans. But no, he's a good guy to watch, and hopefully someday, maybe he'll come up to Alaska. And actually, from his Instagram, he has been to Alaska. So let him know that when you interview him and Sammy, that we're looking forward to having him up fishing in Sitka. He's a big fisherman.
I will relay that, and I didn't know that. So my closer, being super respectful of your time, Nick, is any last words for the kids?
The kids. Well, I think everybody. One of the cool things about founding Sitka Salmon Shares and building this new wave seafood company has been the realization that all the kids, however you define should work in a fish processing plant before they become adults, however you define adults. The learnings that you can, the colloquial term is a slime line, right? And so for your viewers, a slime line is the production line in a fish processing plant.
Sure.
We have a little fish processing plant in Sitka, and the fish come in, and the slime line takes them from a whole fish. For us, it's down to fillet portions. For other companies, it's putting them in a can. All the kids need to work on a slime line before they become adults. They'll teach you hard work, how to get along with different people, different cultures, learn how to manage your money, all sorts of amazing things. And frankly, you can go to sitkasalmonshares.com and apply to work on a slime line this summer, if that's something that your kids watching your show want to do, because we always need slime line workers. And if you're a kid, you want to come work on a slime line somewhere in Alaska before you become an adult. It'll teach you everything you need to know, and you'll be a better person because of it.
Wow. That's not something I'm hearing every day from most of the people I ask. Any last words for the kids too? So Nic, thank you for your originality, your great products, your knowledge, everything it is that you do. Just looking forward to everything that's coming out from you and Sitka Salmon Shares in the future.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks, Darren.
Thanks, man. Take care now.
Yep. And hey, dude, whenever you want to come up to Alaska, let us know. We'll throw out we'll pull, you don't have to work on the slime line. We'll take you fishing and get you out, and you know, we'd love to show you everything about that. And you don't have to do it now, but in the next, you know, in 10 years, if you're deciding to go on an Alaska trip, or, you know, be like, that Sitka Salmon Shares, that guy, he said he'd take us around. So
you'll be sorry. You'll be sorry you offered that one. Well, it's in the back of my mind now, Nic. That's a promise.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks, Darren. It was great to meet you.
Paltrocast.